Welcome back, everybody, to week number 10 of Stage 2 of the Quake Pro League. Up next, Dooi versus cha1n. It's definitely a clash of styles, because cha1n is always more well known for being a little bit more aggressive. Anyone's more aggressive compared to Dooi, though, so this is going to be interesting. I'm excited to see how it goes, because Dewey's always had this unique style, kind of crafted in round-based style back in the day, and now he kind of, unlike the rest of people, has really had to kind of like adapt to the time limit because of his time away. So it has given him like just a truly unique style compared to everyone else in Pro League.
And it's also partly the reason why we have seen such an evolution in the way he's playing. As you rightly say, he's coming fresh, learning a new style of duel for him that is completely novel, and so he has to adapt the way he plays, because that risk-averse, completely passive playstyle just doesn't work in a time limit duel. And so yeah, and that's why we do see him change, and he is changing. He's not the most mechanically gifted player, but he's not bad by any means, and so that's partly why he built his style. And as we said before, he also partly built it around the fact that he never played a time-based duel, and so because of the rounds, lives were so precious, and that's why he developed the way he did.
But as the course of Pro League Stage 2 has been going on, the important thing for Dooi is that he's been pretty comfortable in the leaderboards, and considering he came off Stage 2, rather, that's actually really impressive. Similar to like a kind of like a Cypher realm, players that kind of were late bloomers because they just came into Pro League later, so they've had catching up to do. Dooi has done that and more, and he's collected a bunch of dominant victories on the American side.
100%. He's taken a couple of 3-0s from memory. So he was also one of the players even prior to Quake Pro League that was picking up a lot of games against big players that making a name for himself.
This was almost you almost feel like Stage 2 has been an excuse for Dooi to just be like, do you remember who I am? Like, don't ever forget who I am, and then bam, that's it, 3-0s all round. But some person we're all very familiar with is cha1n, who is one of those players that he's not at the absolute top of the Americas, but he's on a climb. He's kind of similar to like a Dramis type in that, you can see the skill and you can see the talent in what he does. He doesn't have the most amazing weeks sometimes, but he's not a player that you'd ever consider having to worry about relegation anytime soon. He's kind of stuck in that middle ground at the moment.
And as you say, he's someone who's gifted. He's been around for a while, so he's pretty endemic to the scene, and you know what you're going to get with cha1n. It'd be nice to see him take a step up to start challenging the same way as Cygib's done, the kind of topper ranks, because I think he's got it in his potential to do so. But at the minute, as you rightly say, he's kind of that mid-level, always puts in a decent fight, has some fairly bad weeks, losing some bad ones, but also will consistently pick up the games he should be winning.
Now, with these two players going head-to-head, the difference is Dooi, with there being 10 weeks of Dooi having a pretty distinct style that over the weekly periods has started to become, I suppose, a little bit downloaded, for lack of a better term, with some of the players that he's gone up against. Now we're at week 10. This could, in theory, be like the most extreme case of that, where that's been a lot of time to watch and study Dooi, and you now kind of know exactly what you're in for, so you can kind of plan potential strategies around it. How does Dooi kind of get back up on the horse and kind of reach that next level over you?
For sure. I mean, the counter to that is what I would like to see is that because he is now safe, if you will, and this matchup doesn't have a huge amount of relevance in terms of overall standing or progression, I would like to see Dooi mix it up himself and try something that pushes him out of his comfort zone, where he sees he needs to develop. He should just go for it. Like, he's safe now. Like, this is the time where he needs to be pushing out new strategies and saying, this is where I want to move to as a player.
Well, there's a potential to see some new strategies with the picks and bans coming up. We could look at the maps and the champions and see what to expect. Awoken up first with the Visor versus Ranger, Blood Covenant. Now, that's one of the immediate things, is two heavies coming out from Dooi, but the clutch on Molten Falls and removing Athena, that's actually one thing that is very much, I think, a personal player ban, is removing Athena from cha1n. cha1n's Athena has done absolute damage in Pro League throughout the course of this stage. But the Scale Bearer on Blood Covenant, you don't see that every day.
No, you don't.
Not since Sacrifice. The ball rush through the power-up strat.
I mean, that pick for me suggests we're going to see very standard Dooi I'm going to stick on the mid ground. I'm not going to move. I don't even care really about getting items unless they're 100% safe. So it's a bad sign for me if I'm suggesting he should be pushing himself out of his comfort zone. On the contrary, we see a clutch pick on Molten Falls. Something else that's rather unusual. One, that it gets left, and two, that it's picked on Molten Falls. So
Dooi has not been shy of picking clutch in the past,
Exactly.
if memory serves. I remember all the way back to, God, it must have been 2017. I'm going to go and look it up by the end, but there was a time where Dooi was not afraid to use it. You would see very unorthodox picks when there was an established meta of like this champion, this champion, this champion. He was using like clutch, ranger.
yeah, he was well known for using clutch, and obviously the ranger and his amazing ability with that. But it was a time where, yeah, clutch was seen as one of the weaker ones, and he was being innovative with it. So he's always led the forefront of clutch development in the meta. And we all know that clutch is still and remains to be one of the most powerful champions in the right hands.
And clutch is a different champion to what it used to be. So there's an element of Dooi, you know, the meta will still kind of exist there, but I mean the big difference is just the shield wall, how it's been changed to being just a passively existing bubble rather than an actual shield that blocks damage in front. Has changed things around a little bit. In a 1v1 fight, maybe not so much, because in a 1v1 fight, you go in with a stack and it's used just to make sure this shield exists so I can beat you in this fight. Whereas in, you know, the team modes and stuff like that, the shield wall was used as a block. You know, it was a block tool, and it served that purpose well. And, well, we could talk about that in droves, kind of related at this point, because we're going into map number 1, Dooi versus cha1n. We'll see who's going to be able to take that final win as we go into Poland in a few weeks' time. Who gets that final little burst of, you know what, mate? Remember that time I beat you 2 weeks ago?
Thyza versus Ranger. Pretty standard meta picks, if you will. Although, albeit not generally on Awoken. But nevertheless, pretty much two of the most picked champions in the game.
I forgot this wouldn't be Dooi if it wasn't for bright green as well. Long gone are the days where every single thing he ever picked was bright green. I remember. It was back during the days of clutch, I'm pretty sure. But especially now, we can see the somewhat mirrored effect in reverse for the stack difference between Dooi and cha1n. An immediate rail comes out. And we talk about Dooi playing really nice and careful and patient. And the piercing sight I really see is going to be kind of like a tool for that. A little bit of rocket damage. Dooi needs to try and get himself a few more rockets though, hence the tri-bolt coming through. And there's the LG, doesn't teleport, and actually cha1n pushing in, can't get the mega. Really tried to push in and get some of that health in the middle of the fight, and hang on a minute, fresh off the spawn, there should be another pickup for Dooi. cha1n just caught in the wrong side of town right there. Ooh, rail.
Nice rails.
Oh no, 3-0 cha1n.
I mean, this is already racking up the frags here, Dooi.
Oh my word.
Nice.
Cheeky Dooi. And now cha1n's in a terrible position. He has to just try and get out, but he's going to have to really starve all of the small pickups across the way. Even that one rocket was more of a, if it hits, it hits, but he hasn't got the stack to fight for one of these main pickups.
Dooi playing well, controlling that mid ground, hitting lots of shots already. cha1n nothing to work with. Dooi, good reads obviously with the piercing sight there.
Now he's trying to get some of that extra damage on cha1n, and cha1n a little bit on the defense, as you can see. He's really trying to give up as little angles as he can. I'm not particularly confident cha1n has a rail, actually. We'll have to quickly double check. I don't recall he's gone to that part of the map yet, but
he has,
as I can say that, he's just got there.
But he has stabilized, managed to pick up one light armor and get himself a little bit of a footprint on mid ground, but that rail's going to set him back again. Has to retreat to pick up some health and armor. Dooi's got perfect rotation going on here.
When you're in this much control, oh, the fake rocket jump, cheeky. Cheeky Dooi. That tri-bolt was just shy of actually doing a full burst as well because of where cha1n positioned himself.
What a rail.
And Dooi looking good today.
Already on 1,000 damage, 3 minutes in.
This is just information minute for Dooi. He knows he's guarding one of the light armors, so cha1n can't have that much armor at the moment. Oh my word.
We actually see a much more proactive Dooi to usual.
The fake out. Yeah, he's thinking
And
about
his aim, I don't know, to me looks a lot more stable than it has done in previous weeks.
Ooh. Dooi can just maintain this level of control. He's not going to be too upset just yet. And this piercing sight, it's really paying its dues so far. It's not really used to secure these frags. It's just, is something important going to spawn? Yes. Can I get a rail on chain to push him away? Yes. Keep control. Keep him down. Now Dooi going in. Does take a rail, but the benefit was, at the end of the day, he did get himself a heavy. They're both looking for one of those funky rail angles. At this point, though, Dewey's just going to go collect. Missed rails, unfortunate, because it's going to completely guarantee an uncontested mega. And that piercing sight gets popped again. 4 minutes down, Dooi in a comfortable lead, and cha1n just looking for an opening at this stage. Oh, here we go. Gets the rail. Tries to answer back. Dooi only just shy of not railable without armor.
Nice rocket. Just missed the combo, yeah.
So close. cha1n actually still weak, even now. And he's going down near Banana. But understanding, there's a good chance I'm going to get railed if I go around that side. So I think I'll leave it alone.
cha1n not hitting as much as we would usually expect him to, whereas Dooi definitely is. But as we said just now, there has been a good stabilization from cha1n, but Dooi with the angle.
Yeah, just perfect. Perfect position. Looking for a piercing sight shot here.
I think cha1n would have heard that.
Yeah, and he's heard the jump pad. Would say heard the jump pad. You can literally see the jump pad through the wall, but at this point, it's just about Dooi keeping that lead and running away. You know, we've talked about Dooi being a highly defensive player. He was proactive at the very beginning, and he's still making sure he's being proactive for running the circuit of the items. But now we're at the 5-minute mark. Dooi can just keep doing what he's doing, but have less emphasis on, you know, maybe some of the riskier plays to get a frag if he doesn't need to overextend at all.
And all Dooi is doing is backing between these two major areas by using the mid ground. He's got a good spell on the major items still. 11 seconds, so that is enough to clear out and make sure cha1n is nowhere to be found. He's also generally been hitting at least one shot between major items, meaning cha1n is also reluctant to make any sort of play on these major items as well, which is why Dooi is pretty much uncontested.
The danger is that cha1n has he's just not been hitting his rails.
No,
there's nothing else you can say about that.
It's the only way for him back into the game is to hit rails, and he's not doing it. So he either needs to try and change tack and get a bit more of a foothold on the mid ground, because at the minute Dooi is uncontested in that area. Otherwise, he's pretty screwed.
It almost kind of just feels like the Dooi show, and cha1n's just kind of running around the map.
It does.
There's just no presence. There's no sense here. cha1n is just consistently now trying to just survive and stay alive, but
that's not enough when you're behind.
Yeah, the danger is that Dooi is hitting some pretty impressive rails, and at least, you know, just decent rails all round. cha1n really unable to hit most of them. He's just hit 2 rails in a row. That's kind of the best chain of rails he's had in 6.5 minutes.
Missed the rocket jump, so he's not going to be able to pressure Dooi right there. Although he should be able to get onto this mega now, which is one of the first major items this game for cha1n. When you're 6.5 minutes in, that's not a good statistic.
Oh, beautiful rocket! And again, it's got cha1n nervous. Dewey's on great stack here.
Dewey's weapon selection has been spot on as well.
At this point, just over 3 minutes left, right? And that's it.
Yep.
Just letting it rock out there. Trying to, I mean, he doesn't even need to look for rail angles anymore. Not with the, you know, the 3-minute clock that it's working on.
Yeah, I think now that cha1n has managed to get himself onto the map,
oh, get back down there.
We should see.
Who do you think I am?
Stereotypical Dooi now, picking up positions where he always has the positional advantage to get the first shot. And if cha1n wants to push once again, Dooi will be happy to provide the damage.
And this is a near unwinnable situation for cha1n now. The chance of cha1n just being in a position where he can even win a fight dominantly enough that he can daisy chain them without Dooi spawning with a fresh stack to finish him off is low enough as is. Least of all the fact that he has to get 6 frags. Now that is the start.
That's a good frag as well because it was clean.
And it's
really
in a
clean.
Good time where cha1n can actually start putting pressure on near the heavy to get a stack back up.
Exactly, but he hasn't got timing. He does see it though, but Dewey's there. Has to back off. Nice.
A little bit of that damage.
Just clipped him though.
2 minutes on the clock for 5 frags. Doable, but Dewey's not going to make this easy. He knows. He knows what the condition's going to be here.
Stopwatch.
You can see the backing up with the tri-bolt, and now cha1n just being he has to chase. Time is not on his side.
And he's missing crucial rails. Does hit one, but it's not enough. He needed him at least 2 there.
Perfect tri-bolt, because Dooi knows he's going to be a little bit antsy to go for the light armor. Now, if he gets some good spawns, he can totally make this comeback, but it's going to be a hard-fought one. And I will be honest, I'd be shocked if he can do it with just how it hasn't gone in his favor so far. cha1n's accuracy has been the bane of his existence.
You can see Dewey's already playing corners.
Hang on, though. Hang on, cha1n. No, he's out of rails! Oh, no! cha1n out of rails.
And pretty much out of rockets.
Oh, dear. That's vital.
Yeah,
that might even have won the game right there, that one rail, because now he's got to disengage. And he's either going to lose a frag like that, or he's going to have to try and get some stack. Not that there was much around that part of the map, to be honest. 50 seconds on the clock. This should, by all means, be a map #1 win for Dooi. And now, yeah, just hit angles, play defensive, and this is it. All she wrote.
Yeah, it was a good game by Dooi. I think cha1n definitely missed more shots than he would be happy with. But ultimately, it was a much more proactive Dooi in the early stages of the game. Once he did enough to have the victory, we did see him retreat into his more typical pattern, but that's expected of anyone. He looked very comfortable in control and made sure he did the basics extremely well.
And from this point, 10 seconds on the clock, wrap it up, because that's map #1 done and dusted. Convincing win there for Dooi. cha1n now going to be 1 map down. The question is, how does he recover in the future maps? It is nice to see, though, there was a change of style there from Dooi. There was always a bit of concern out there that Dewey's style at the time was almost like a one-trick kind of style, you know, where it's I will play defensive, I will play extremely slow, and that's my style.
But ultimately, you can see that Dooi had nearly double the pickups and 2/3 more damage as well. So it was essentially just an outplay. It's as simple as that.
And up next, we have a little bit more of a question mark pick. It's that Scale Bearer coming out on the Blood Covenant. It should be Nyx, I believe. The Nyx was the pick by cha1n. And Athena being removed, obviously, being a very, very respect ban coming out from Dooi. We all know that cha1n's Athena is one of the best in the world right now. And it's not to be challenged. So you don't want to mess with it on a map like Blood Covenant, where she's arguably at her strongest.
Exactly.
But a lot of these frags, it's just Dooi setting it up. cha1n, just some of these frags just caught in the wrong part of town. Like, just straight up. Dooi is there, cha1n comes around the corner, bam, he's just dead. And uncharacteristic sometimes to see cha1n like that. He's normally kind of a lot more, I suppose, careful here. Dooi going for a change of style might always be a little bit of a curveball, because you expect one thing and he gives you another. But all things said and done, the piercing sight was a massive part of that, I think, for just setting up the frags.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the first 5 minutes or so, it was like watching a different player. It's just not the Dooi that we have seen in previous weeks. Aim was really good, on point. Positioning was strong. He was proactive, and everything he did was working. So it was good to watch.
Well, we're going to see if that's going to continue its presence, though, because it is going to be quite a significant... Watching a piercing sight visor on Awoken, it's automatically going to be different to a Scale Bearer on Blood Covenant.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I think I've really seen Scale Bearer picked in a competitive setting on this map. You just don't really get to see it all that often, so I am curious to kind of see what tricks Dooi has up his sleeve. I'd seen Scale Bearer used on Blood Covenant in like scrims and practice games on player streams and personal streams, but not really much in a competitive setting like this one.
No, nor have I. And again, I've played it quite a lot on this map, and it's quite a difficult champion to play. But at the end of the day, it's one of Dewey's specialities, if you will. He is able to play it at a quick tempo. We've seen it on Molten last time he picked it. It was really great. He obviously loves his strong position to use the rail as well. And that's definitely a possibility on this map. So I'm interested to see in which style he brings with it.
We're moments away from finding out. Remember, to everyone watching the stream so far, make sure you're tweeting out the stream. Make sure you're following Quake Champions on Twitter using the hashtag Quake Pro League for all the information that you need. You know, we're a couple of weeks away now from the Stage 2 finals in Poland, IEM. It's going to be a big deal, and a lot of these players are really excited. You know, a lot of players. I mean, IEM is.
It's good to be back.
It's a special tournament to the Quake community, and it's something that a lot of players kind of hold close to their hearts, similar to the DreamHacks and, you know, of course, the Quake cons.
Yes.
And this is an opportunity for a lot of, like, I suppose, like the newer blood to be like, yo, we're here, we're back. This is an opportunity for us to show that we're, you know, the top dogs here, and it's a great opportunity to kind of come full circle in a way.
It was a lifeblood of the scene for such a long time, and pretty much the pedigree of the sustained league system. So for many of these players, it'd be their first experience at an IEM, and it's always a good one.
Is it really weird as an old school Quake player saying for many of these Quake players it will be their first time? Does it make you feel really old?
Yeah, it does.
I feel like Quake does that to people. I noticed that too. Like when Quake Champions first came out and I started out, I was like, it felt weird being considered a whippersnapper, and I'm 28 next month. Like Quake's an old school game, man, with a lot of legacy and a lot of OGs behind the wheel. Like it's true. I mean, it truly is a unique experience.
Look at the greyness coming through now. You know.
That's just the stress of competitive gaming, man. That'll do that to absolutely everyone, I think. But I believe we had a bit of a, I don't know, one of the players, we're just getting them back into a lobby, and we should be good to go very soon. Hey, we're loading up now, right on cue. So Blood Covenant, Nyx versus Scalebearer. An interesting matchup because there's going to be the natural mobility difference with Nyx and the double jump versus Scalebearer, who's not going to have as many jumps as he can take. But if Nyx gets caught without Ghost Walk on Blood Covenant, there's quite a lot of places that Bull Rush is going to just delete. Surely.
Yeah, the one thing that always comes to my mind is that kind of, you know, the bull, the Matador style, you know, running at the Nyx and just evaporating. But if that's not the case, then she gets splattered as well. I'm genuinely interested to see how Dooi plays Scalebearer. I think I've seen Rafa play it a couple of times, at least on his stream. So the Americans, at least, definitely value the Scalebearer a lot more than the European scene does.
The difference in communities, I suppose, and it's always great to see just how different parts of the world tackle this. Now, if you were to see, you know, Blood Covenant, Dooi would normally be the one rocking the Nyx. And it would be for that, you know, the extension of that defensive style. It was kind of one of his first Pro League performances was using a Nyx on this map, and the Ghost Walk was just like, you just can't find him. And when you finally do, he's out. He's gone.
Oh, and he's gone.
Yep, and he's going to be using just the escape route here.
Oh, great rail.
And a wonderfully timed rail from cha1n, waiting for the Bull Rush to be over to make sure you don't hit the damage mitigation rail. You want max damage all the way through now. This is a terrible position for Dooi. Not really going to be particularly easy for him to retreat. And even if he does manage to give up a single angle, I mean, you're a large champion with very little stack. You are a sitting duck with 3 damage.
Really nice by cha1n there, using the double jump just to fake out Dooi.
That's the second double jump near the jump pad too, just to get that extra rocket. Only did 10 damage, but Dooi still ate it at least. But with that 1-0 cha1n now, I mean, the next objective is going to be armor. And that's one thing you can kind of foresee Dooi trying to rob away as much as possible, is just getting rid of the armor so cha1n doesn't have it. But wonderful choice. Waits for the double jump first, and it comes. And yeah, minimal damage. Only 1 rail. Not going to do anywhere near as much damage, and that's a great choice. We're going to see who's going to get in there. cha1n just choosing to retreat, and Dooi not crazy interested in pushing the advantage just yet.
You can see Dooi, they're making a conscious effort to take away those hourglasses, just seeing him go round the bend there. So it's smart by Dooi, knowing the Ghost Walk was just popped, and
I love the double jump from cha1n.
Extending the cooldown, and yeah, great double jump to mitigate any potential damage. Oh, what a flick rail.
Fantastic shot. Vertical rails are some of the hardest shots you can hit.
Oh, he's caught the Ghost Walk is back up, so he can commit if he needs to. But he does. Great use of it just at the last second to dodge that rocket, otherwise it probably would have connected.
Yeah, the moment cha1n realized that he was in the middle of a jump and Dewey's rocket was just about to hit its mark, that was the perfect time to pull the trigger.
He should be able to pick up both major items here.
Ooh, Dooi. He's
Dooi
not
probably
quite going to
go for it.
He'll get Bull Rush by the time he's able to escape, but is he going to use it now to survive? Because right now that Bull Rush hasn't done much, and he does not want to give it up. That was a fantastic drop shot right there.
All right, chill out.
Yeah, calm down. That's sweaty gamer moment.
That was really nice.
cha1n. It's always nice when you can bring it. But it's this idea that a map doesn't go his way, and it really doesn't phase. It's the ability for these players to really take Pro League 1 map at a time and ignore what happens before. You know, it doesn't matter how things go or how disastrous things might go for you.
Yeah, that's the glory of the system in a way, in that it does instill that mindset slightly better, I feel, than a knockout, in so much that every map counts. So even if you are 2-0 down, there's still something to be gained out of playing the final map.
At this point, cha1n's just looking for a potential ambush or information to go and get Mega. So at this point, Dooi hasn't really been able to contest cha1n on any of these pickups.
No, and at the minute, cha1n's doing a great job of patrolling the high ground and using that advantage to maximize his rail damage, picking off the scale bearer. Dooi now is able to get himself a rail.
I think we were somewhat expecting to see this, though. It is that movement. It's the fact that it's been less about the ghost walk and more about just the double jump here so far.
Yes.
The fact that, you know, all it takes is one wall jump across the top ground, and cha1n's where he wants to be, whereas Scalebearer just doesn't have that same luxury. And Dooi so far has used the ball rush never in combat, never in attacks. It's been to try and get in and out of some of these major pickups. Here, cha1n's taking some fantastic rails.
And cha1n is using that speed advantage to make sure he's always getting on top of Dooi, so Dooi can never build that stack. He's not too phased about Dooi picking up the items because he's in those positions to kind of capitalize upon the fact that Dooi is committing.
Hang on.
I think Dooi did hear that though, so it does get out smartly.
Dooi seemed like he was just a little bit too early. Mega spawned right next to him. That's unfortunate, because you feel like that was a very deliberate pattern there for Dooi to try and get in and out for the Mega, and the second he left it, the Mega appeared, so that's just unfortunate.
Good use of the outglasses, so that Ghost Walk is already back up, not too long after the cooldown.
5-minute warning. It may feel like nothing's really happened here, but it's cha1n running rings around Dooi. That's really a huge part of it. That he's not even really giving his position away. He's just eluding him. He knows his mobility far trumps Scalebearer on a map like this.
But the one thing is that he's essentially keeping the game in equilibrium. He's doing enough to keep Dooi at bay, but not enough to threaten him. So Dooi can't commit or overcommit, but at the same time, cha1n isn't racking up any kills. So Dooi's doing enough to keep himself in the game. And if all he needs is to catch cha1n off guard, and then if he pops that Ghost Walk, he's in a lot of trouble if he pops it defensively.
Yeah, and it depends on where you're on the map too. You know, one kind of somewhat center map, and if you can really trigger that spawn near the hallway, that can, one frag can become two.
Now he's in trouble. Oh, okay.
Dearie me, that's a rocket from out of nowhere. An opportunity to come back snuffed away, and Dooi fresh off the spawn, he really hasn't got much to contest it. He has a starter machine gun, and I mean, he can't contest that.
Yeah, he's just going to die here because he's already so low. It takes an absolute age to get back up to stack with the scale bearer, so...
Not to mention the slower speed, so escaping is not easy. Combined with the fact that you just got a big old hitbox. This, by all accounts, should be cha1n's map to win, and a big part of this has been Dooi. He's unable to play the game.
He is. I mean, the scale bearer pick just hasn't worked. Okay, see you later, sunshine. It just hasn't worked. cha1n has exploited the deficiencies in his movement capability. cha1n just get across the map too quick. Because if cha1n dash double jumps across now, Dooi can't do anything.
He's going in. He wants to extend the lead. Nice. Hits another rail, and he's safe from a rail himself.
He could just leave Dooi there if he wanted to, but may as well just isolate him, take away the Mega health. It doesn't.
Yeah, Dooi hugging his right as much as possible. He does not want to give up a single more rail.
He's so scared right now.
Yeah. And as long as he's low, cha1n happy to let him take it. Can he disengage and restack back up in any capacity?
It's the first big mistake from cha1n though, because look at his position. He's lost out now on the Mega as well. Has got 20-second cooldown on the Ghost Walk, so Dooi is in a really good position. The best he's been all game. He's going to push in. Has got the go. Oh, can he kill it? And he does.
How much damage was dealt? That's the thing.
It was, but it was the only only opportunity Dooi's had all game to make anything count, and he made it happen.
cha1n squeezed out as much possible damage as he could in that exchange. You know, it was all about just trying to make sure, right, double jump, avoid damage for as long as possible, a couple of extra rockets. He got one extra rocket than perhaps he should have in that exchange. And it means that now as this fight breaks out, wait a minute, Dooi, he has to really try and run off. And cha1n is not going to go on that suicide mission of trying to go for another frag there, even if Dooi was at death's door.
That was a good. I really like that use of the Ghost Walk. Understanding he did some decent damage to Dooi in the early exchanges, so just jumping into a very, very risky situation to deal extra damage, hopefully get a kill, but still popping the Ghost Walk. And even though it didn't kill him, he did enough to Dooi that Dooi had to back off. So, yeah, perfect play there coming out from cha1n.
More time being drained on the clock though. cha1n 4-1, a minute and a half left to go. And at this point, cha1n just needs to, continue doing what he's doing. He's just been using that mobility of Nyx far superior to Scale Bearer on a map like this. If this was a map we would see on something like a Molten Falls, it would be a double jump. Cheeky double jump. Perfectly timed around the corner as well. cha1n just looking to retreat. He doesn't even need to frag Dooi anymore. A frag here would be nice, but with Dooi at 10 HP, he's got to take time to stack back up. And it's all time that he doesn't have.
Exactly. Oh.
Ooh, cha1n went back. And a rail, that was kind of risky business. You would half think maybe he's gone for Mega, and that's why he had the rail out. But the fact he hit that shot, happy days all round. It means he can keep that 5-1 advantage. And this should be cha1n's match to win here. Rail after rail. Ball rush is ready, misses the shot, but... Ball rush runs out, he's still going fast, and he just blows them both up. The Fool will kill us both powers. 30 seconds on the clock. cha1n taking this victory here over Dooi. It's not been the cleanest game for Dooi, but it just kind of feels like he's been kept on the end of a leash, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect analogy, really. That it was cha1n dictating the tempo, dictating positioning. And honestly,
Scale Bearer just bang his face into that pillar.
And honestly, Dooi just looked helpless.
It seems very much like this was a battle of matchups right here, and this kind of seems like what happens when I was concerned when I saw this. It's just Scale Bearer. When you see Scale Bearer, it does work on quite a few maps. If this exact matchup were to be seen,
and look at that aim, 67% rail.
Damn good.
I mean, what can Dooi do when you've got nearly 3k damage coming out in just rail? He just kind of plucked away at the Scale Bearer and kept him at bay. And Dooi never had a stack, so he could never push. And even if he pushed, Nyx just Ghost Walk, jumped away, kept chipping away at you. I mean, it was nigh on impossible, and you're completely right. It was a battle of matchups, and that's Nyx's home ground. It's not Scale Bearers.
Yeah, and it's kind of almost like we talked about coming full circle. That's quite a full circle moment for me, because there was a time where back when Quake Champions first existed, a lot of people would try and Scale Bearer, and it just never worked on maps like this, which was one of the most popular maps that we would ever see. And Nyx was like the hotness. Everyone played Nyx, and it's kind of almost like we've gone back in time. That was, I think, the best rail of the map right there for sure. But it's a matter of just mobility. Scale Bearer, when he can get going and the mobility works, it's fine. But he's not very vertical.
But look at most of these kills. It's the Nyx on the high ground, using the rail, chipping away at the Scale Bearer. And the Scale Bearer, and he did a great job of isolating the rail as well, because Scale Bearer is just standing there trying to machine gun from the distance. And you're not going to win that battle, so...
This was the moment. But yeah, it's one time. Sometimes that just happens to be there, and it's not the only factor that was at play, but it was significant enough that it was always present.
Sure.
You know, it was just a matter of cha1n. He went into it, I think, really knowing exactly how he wanted to play that matchup, and Dooi looking kind of lost, really. And when you see Scale Bearer, it's normally on a map where you can build the speed constantly. On Blood Covenant, you just won't see that as much, because there's like a top, middle, and lower level, and you could be at any one of those. And on something like Molten, which is almost like those levels are kind of almost integrated.
Exactly.
Scale Bearer can just run that circuit. On Blood Covenant, he can run a circuit on one of 3 floors, and
the thing about Molten relative to Blood Covenant is that Blood Covenant, you can't get away from the open ground. The Mega and the Heavier are both in a very exposed position, and to get to one another, you generally have to go around a very exposed area. The rail is also very exposed, whereas on Molten, you have the back channels to run around as well, and the items are nowhere near as exposed. So it's a much more even playing field for a Scale Bearer in that sense.
So with what we just saw there, it's kind of gone back to kind of a classic for me, where it's pretty hard to predict who we think is going to take the third map. The first map was really a combination of really well played by Dooi, but a string of kind of disastrous aim from cha1n that just wasn't working the way we're familiar with it. And then the Blood Covenant was a matchup at work. Speaking of matchups, this is another bit of a weird one. Clutch versus Anarchy.
This was like, 2017 meta, honestly, where it was...
We've gone back in time.
We
today,
literally have gone back in time onto a brand new map. But if I'm honest, even last map, like, I do feel like we're seeing a slightly more renewed Dooi, just in the way he's playing these maps. So I hope he keeps that momentum up, and with Clutch he definitely can do, because as I mentioned earlier today, that the Clutch is one of those champions that just breaks the normal dynamics of a duel.
Delicious opening rocket, 100 outright.
Yep.
That's going to take out cha1n, put Dooi in a good position to run and take this mega. Watch out, cha1n. Oh, the increased air mobility allows the rail to miss its mark. Thank you, Anarchy.
Because not only does he have some of the quickest movement patterns out of all the champions in terms of Clutch, but that shield is like nothing else. The Scale Bearer has a similar reduction, but you're not functional when you use it. You are still functional while having a massive stack and damage reduction. And with the modern games, the modern gamers nowadays with insane aim, the fact that you're as easily hittable as you are doesn't matter. You're gonna hit pretty much the same amount, but you're gonna have like 3 to 4 times the relative equal health.
But cha1n,
But when you don't have it, that's the key.
Manages to pick away bit by bit. And we've seen Clutch not work out so hard. If memory serves, it was Razy versus cha1n. cha1n made mincemeat of that.
Yes.
Clutch on Blood Covenant.
You can, and this is the thing, this is the trade-off. You have to, and this is why Dooi likes it, because you have to be unbelievably passive and self-aware in your positioning to ensure you're not left out in the open. Plus, similar to the Nyx, you don't just want to use the shield defensively. You want to use it aggressively. If you're using it defensively, again, you're not using the potential of the champion.
Now there's that initial rocket sprung there by Dooi.
But it's just so easy to hit. And the way cha1n was railing last game, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, you go into a fight knowing that you're going to take damage. The fact is, you go into a fight as the largest and easiest to hit champion in the game with this thought of, okay, look, I'm going to take damage, but I will hit more than they will hit, and I am confident in my ability. Rocket, no, but the injection gets matched by cha1n, and Dooi is out of there. Neither player went overextend, but cha1n's actually looking for there was a potential looking there for another angle, I think.
I do think that Anarchy might have been picked in response to the Clutch, due to the fact that you have the potential through your movement to get away if the Clutch is, ouch, making aggressive plays. You can use that speed to get away, use the injection to top up. So it is a possibility, because that was also one of the traditional counters.
Being able to go toe-to-toe with the movement of the champion.
Exactly.
Shield gets popped, and you can kind of pop the injection while he's out there just to match the health.
Slash would also be another good alternative, but potentially on this map, Anarchy might be slightly preferable if you're not entirely comfortable with this crouch sliding.
Ranger once upon a time used to be when the dire orb would telefrag. We used to see that more than once.
Slightly riskier nowadays, but
oh, absolutely. Definitely. This game has progressed a fair amount since it first came out.
oh yeah.
And the players have just ascended in their skill. Like, the level of play we see from Quake champions now compared to back then is like, you can't even compare it at all. But here come the rails. And now it's cha1n hitting some of that opening stuff.
Yeah, I think you're generally going to lose that exchange as a Clutch, my friend.
Yeah. Even if you're peeking, you're still taking a giant arm and sticking it around a corner.
Stealing away lights against a Clutch or against any heavy is really important. So it's definitely a consideration. Making sure you do challenge for major items is also very important, because you cannot allow Clutch to reach that maximum capacity. Becomes extremely scary. Dooi done a great job though with slowing it down. This is all he wants to do, is to slow it down to get onto his major items and then to abuse that shield to push in.
Dooi.
I think he missed that.
Nice choice. Actually, chopping to go for the walk approach because he doesn't want to give a single ounce of information to cha1n. It did allow for a sneaky rail, but Sneaky rail is kind of all it will be. Dooi doesn't want to overextend. He's peppering a lot of damage out, but there seems to be an air of reservedness coming out.
This is more like the normal Dooi. 100%.
If you were to compare clutches here, if we were to see Razy, for example, quite a few of these, you feel like Razy would have popped the shield wall and really strong-armed his way into this. This was very much kind of like a reactionary, almost autopilot shield wall there, where he'd taken so much damage and cha1n had so much stack, there was really no reason he should have popped the shield wall there.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, as soon as you have to pop it defensively, you're kind of screwed. Because now look at Dooi. He's still got another 20 seconds before he can even think about moving in.
Oh, hourglasses.
Hourglasses help.
Nice.
2 frag difference though. Once again, this is what Dooi does well. He limits the damage to the scoreline. So even though he might have like a 3-4k damage differential against him, doesn't matter if that doesn't translate into score.
Uh-oh. But here comes a hungry cha1n.
But it will.
And he gets another frag here, 4-1. But just look at the spawn stack. That's what's so bloody scary about this champion.
Oh my god, he took so much damage.
You look at Dooi's spawn stack and you'd think he just got a full rotation of items.
Yeah.
Like, that's the strength.
It's crazy.
The awakened automaton.
But cha1n's doing a great job of not only reading Dooi, but making sure he's maximizing damage with great rail though.
And it's perfectly timed. So now he's going to get his hands on a mega heavy just about to spawn in 5 seconds time. Is Dooi even interested though? He's going to get a light on the way. Looks like he might concede the heavy, depends. cha1n, yeah, a little bit more confident that perhaps he wasn't going to go for it. So cha1n actually took a little bit of extra time, but if Dooi just hit that rail, would have been better than nothing, but now cha1n's back up to an impressive stack. He has just popped his injection too, so doesn't really matter that he'd got beat to the Mega prior. Mega's likely to go down again. And Dooi's looking to spring a trap. How long is he going to be willing to stay here though? Rail coming out from cha1n. Not going to hit its mark just yet. You can see the patience here from Dooi. He's looking for that one moment to kind of spring something. Shield wall used just to try and take away the heavy, but he's taken so much damage. That was an expensive heavy to take. Not the end of the world though, because cha1n doesn't actually have access to armor. He just picked up that lightning mega though. Oh no, that rail! Inches. That's inches away from hitting its mark. And as long as cha1n keeps a stack like this, it will be troublesome for Dooi, because one rail, one initiation, and cha1n can totally take this fight, make it 5-2, and there's not a lot of this map left. That's the dangerous thing for Dooi.
2.5 minutes. It is definitely achievable though. We've seen some crazy stuff from Molten. But cha1n is just hitting so much. Dooi doesn't really know what to do to counter him. He's always got less stack. And that's never good, particularly because Anakin doesn't have much stack to work with anyway.
And Dooi consistently being kept. That's what cha1n's doing a great job of, is making sure that Dooi is consistently kept.
Oh my gosh.
I swear, if that...
Exactly, I was about to reiterate your point that
gravitational pull.
cha1n is just prodding. He's never, he's not overcommitted once. He's barely used the rocket. It's all been rail, lightning gun, mid to long range. Only when he knows it's safe is he pushing it. And look at that, it's virtually 100% lightning gun. That fridge is melting.
Perfectly timed with the mega there for cha1n as well, knowing he can go in and take this one. Clutch. Said to be one of the hardest champions to use at this level of play. You know, a lot of people really dislike fighting a really good clutch, but a huge part of that is because there's just the time and the experience that has gone into making this champion a huge headache. I feel like he's the kind of champion not anyone could really use at this level of play and make work to the same degree of like a Razy or something similar. But I feel like Dooi, we haven't seen him use a huge amount of clutch in time limit duel setting, and I think that might be one of these elements that there's just a little bit of de-rusting that potentially needs to be done here.
It's 100%, and it's a really valid point. It's 100% a very different play style you need in time limit duel, because you are, all it takes is one good use of that ability in round-based format, and for one kill, and that's all you needed to achieve. Whereas in time limit, you're exposed for such a long period of the game.
He's going to go full speed ahead with the shield wall, delicious rocket, and an even more delicious rail. Dominant map here for cha1n, who's going to take this victory over Dooi. 2-1 in total through just a good understanding of matchups. If anything, a great understanding of matchups.
Yeah.
He went up against the scale. Oh, combo and the ring out. Rocket into rail into off the map. See you later, mate.
That's one way to finish.
Oh.
I thought it could happen again. That is one style point way to finish the game.
That's crispy.
Yeah, I think Dooi might feel a little bit disheartened. I mean, I think Clutch has always been one of those fallback champions, but like I said today, this is an opportunity for Dooi to test something new. Using Clutch might be a way to test something new. I think, particularly on maps 1 and 2, we saw a very different Dooi to we've seen in other weeks, and so it's just another step in his progression as a player in the time limit world of Duel.
There was a great display of matchups coming out from cha1n today.
73 rail.
When he fought off against the Scale Bearer on Blood Covenant,
Yep.
it essentially exploited some of the more immediate weaknesses that Scale Bearer has in Time Limit Duel, and some of those maps where you can't really get the mobility going and you can just run rings around and keep him on the end of a leash, as we said earlier on. And then in the final map, somehow there was a Clutch versus Anarchy, and cha1n managed to, for the most part, have more stack than Dooi all the time.
Yeah, I think that cha1n put a lot of thought into the selection of those champions for the last 2 games. Like the Nyx was just wiped the floor with Scale Bearer. The Ghost Walk was used to absolute perfection, both aggressively and defensively, and the movement, as you said rightly, was just exploited the weaknesses in the mobility of the Scale Bearer. Whereas in this map, in a very similar scenario, he used Anarchy to run rings around the Clutch. Yes, you can chase down Anarchy if you want to as a Clutch, but unless you have the shield and the stack advantage, you're never going to win that. Particularly on a map like Molten, where there's lots of open space you can run into, you just feel very exposed as a Clutch in general.
You think there's a reason why when we see, like, I think one of the more premier Clutches that we see pick Clutch regularly, or essentially whenever he can, with Razy, there's a distinct clash in styles. It's much faster paced and much more aggressive. It's less about a defensive style and a slow style. It's, I will use Clutch to overwhelm you at every given moment. And that kind of feels to be the time limit evolution of the champion. That because you are so easy to hit, you have to go offense, and that shield wall needs to be used to suffocate and snuff you out every time.
And unlike the Scale Bearer, I don't think Molten is the strongest map for a Clutch. The Clutch, for me, much more favours. That was funny. More favours a map like Blood Run or these maps with close quarter combat where you can rush into these avenues and abuse that shield. On this map, there's only one real area around that back banana area where you can truly suffocate your opponent. So for instance, on a Blood Run, if you're attacking Mega and you rush in with a Clutch and pop that shield, where's your opponent going to go? But on a map like Molten, you've got so many exit avenues and you can back off into the mid ground where it's so open. That's when the Clutch becomes exposed.
Well played to Dooi and cha1n. cha1n's ultimately going to take that win 2-1 to end the week number 10. So that's just a great feeling, if anything, Dooi. It was an opportunity to maybe try a couple of new things. Like you said at the start, they're both kind of safe, really. So this is more about, okay, we know we're safe from the danger zone. So if Dooi has the opportunity to experiment with things, now's a good time. And he's got scrim time between now and Poland anyway. So it's not the end of the world. The result went the way it did. But cha1n, well done. Played extremely well to get the result he was after. We have 3 more series left to go. Our next matchup is... Ooh, it's a good one. Wenger versus Cypher.
You physically shivered as you said that.
It's just, we're getting some really good matches for this final week. We have Wenger versus Cypher, and then after that, it's Cooler versus Kilson, for crying out loud, and then we finish things off with the teammates head-to-head, Rafa versus Dahang.
So we've pretty much got the 6 best players in the world, give or take, playing against each other in head-to-head matchups. So stick around. Wenger is one of my favourite players. I absolutely love this guy. I think he's got bags of potential. He's got Razy as a practice partner, so it's no wonder he's developed so rapidly, and he's got the perfect mindset for progression in Quake and for playing Quake, and he just loves the game. And obviously Cypher, everyone knows about Cypher. Doesn't always show up online, but he shows up when he needs to. And approaching Katowice, I would imagine he would hopefully come out to show us what he's got today.
There's a great opportunity for him to just, I think, send somewhat of a message before we go into the next major LAN. But Wenger, we'll talk about him and Cypher in droves later. We're going to go for a short break and set up that big match for those just tuning in. This is week number 10 of Stage 2 of the Quake Pro League. We'll see you in a few minutes' time, and take care.